Hey everyone, I'm Dan, and welcome to Mass Effect Follower. Now, if you've been with our channel for a while, you may have seen our videos covering each of the races in the Mass Effect universe. So I'm happy to welcome you to our new series of videos diving into the individual histories of our favorite characters in the franchise. Starting with everyone's favorite Turian.
I'm Garrus Vakarian, codename Archangel. All-round Turian bad boy and dispenser of justice in an unjust galaxy.
Now, to cover Garrus's early history, it's gonna take a fair amount of extrapolation, but we can be sure of at least a few things. First off, his family. His sister, Solana, and his unnamed parents. The only thing we know about his mother is that she suffers from a rare Turian disease called Corpalis syndrome, which seems to be a Turian Alzheimer's. His father, on the other hand, gets a lot more characterization, even though he's never named. This characterization mostly stems from the fact that he and Garrus really didn't get along. He was a C-Sec officer just like Garrus was. But Daddy Garrus... Sorry. Garrus's father seemed to clash with Garrus's cowboy cop tendencies. From the way Garrus talks about him in Mass Effect 3, he seems to be a methodical, by-the-book sort of guy. Now, according to BioWare's Patrick Weeks, Garrus is about 2 to 4 years younger than Shepard, which makes him about 25 to 27 years old around the time of Mass Effect 1. Which makes him younger than I thought he was. Aww, baby Garrus. Now, the age thing is kind of surprising, considering that in Mass Effect 2, he mentions having served in the Turian military before joining C-Sec. Every Turian citizen from the age of 15 to 30 has to serve the state in some capacity. So it seems surprising that he chose to serve at C-Sec. Seriously, the Turian military encompasses everything from the fire department to the police across all the colonies. But Garrus chose to follow in his father's footsteps. Which leads me to believe that even if he had accepted that it wouldn't happen, he wanted to make his father proud. Which leads us right up until the moment that changes Garrus's life forever. The investigation of Saren and his meeting of Commander Shepard. And the rest, as we know, is history. But I'm gonna tell you anyway. Over the course of the series, Garrus goes from a cowboy cop to a vigilante to an advisor to the Turian Primarch. That's quite the career trajectory. But what's even more apparent than his career is the mental toll it takes on him. In Mass Effect 1, he is an officer at C-Sec trying desperately to prove that Saren is working with the Geth. But he's getting hamstrung at every turn by Saren's Spectre status, rendering all his mission reports as classified. With Garrus's frustration with oversight and red tape, one would think he'd be a prime candidate for the Spectres. And, well, you'd be right. He downplays it as being one of many Turian soldiers selected for potential candidacy. But the fact remains he was in the running for the Spectres. That is, until his father found out about it. The Spectres' lack of accountability was against everything he stood for, so Garrus joined C-Sec instead. Over the course of Mass Effect 1, depending on Shepard's Paragon or Renegade responses, he either tells Shepard he'll commit to C-Sec, or he'll reapply to the Spectres. Now, anyone remotely familiar with Mass Effect 2 knows that he does precisely neither of these things. He runs to Omega, arguably the biggest hellhole in the entire galaxy, to basically become the Turian Punisher. Now, what could possibly have driven him to that? The answer is simple. Shepard's death. Watching his commander's death at the hands of the Collectors must have caused such a crisis that I imagine he felt he couldn't live up to their example as a Spectre. So, he ran from everything related to Shepard, and tried to leave the galaxy better than he found it. In a way, Garrus's vigilantism is incredibly similar to Thane's creed at the time Shepard meets him. Oh, and I wasn't kidding about the Turian Punisher thing. According to the Shadow Broker's files on him, Garrus went out of his way to try and kill bad guys in increasingly ironic ways. Such as killing a Volus saboteur by sabotaging his suit so he suffocated, killing a Batarian red sand dealer by overdosing him on red sand in all 4 eyes. The best one, though, was killing a Quarian serial killer who specialized in viruses by, get this, coughing on it. It's around this time that he forms the team that his loyalty mission revolves around avenging. According to the Shadow Broker's files, he carved each of their names into his visor, and then burned off Sidonis' name when he realized he betrayed them. To anyone paying attention to Garrus over the course of Mass Effect 2, You can see he's carrying around some pretty severe PTSD and survivor's guilt to boot. If you take the Paragon route when confronting Sidonis, he talks about food not having any taste and being unable to sleep because the faces of the old team are all staring at him. The switch to looking at Garrus makes it very clear that he's suffering in the same way. You know, on top of the whole taking a rocket to the face thing. Thankfully, if playing FemShep, you can choose to relieve some of his incredibly depressing life by initiating a romance with him. Oh yeah, boys and girls, it's time to get the sexy times! While she initially proposes it as a friend with benefits kind of thing, Garrus's reaction is surprised that Shepard would ever think of him in that way. But he's intrigued nonetheless. In their initial romance talks, they speak about how much they trust and respect each other enough to even consider this. Garrus makes a point to say in his typical smooth way that he doesn't have a fetish for humans. A regular Casanova. Now that terminology probably doesn't strike you as particularly romantic. It is, however, pretty typical of Garrus. It's really kind of endearing. Sure, the guy can hold his own against 3 merc bands out for his blood for days on end, but try to get him to hit on a lady and this is the stuff he comes up with.
Come here often. I imagine anyone who does is probably an alcoholic.
He's also completely oblivious to the fact that Dr. Michelle has a huge crush on him.
She got you Turian chocolate?
She said she saw it and thought of me. Why?
Watch yourself, Shepard.
The fact that Garrus is successful with anyone is kind of a miracle. In fact, the only successful romantic liaison we know he even had before meeting Shepard was with a female Turian soldier during his infamous reach and flexibility anecdote.
Actually, she and I were the top-ranked hand-to-hand specialists on the ship. I had reach, but she had flexibility. We ended up holding a tiebreaker in her quarters. I had reach, but she had flexibility. More than one way to work off stress, I guess.
Now that we've put together his history, let's go over his personality. Garrus is a Turian driven by seeking out justice and retribution. It's part of his establishing character moment when Shepard first meets him. A Turian, part of a society that values following orders and military honor above all else, trying to get his superior to reconsider his decision. The idea of guilty people escaping retribution is something that comes up again and again in his story arcs across the trilogy. And not just the guilty escaping from the law, but Garrus taking him upon itself to dish out punishment and retribution on behalf of the wronged parties. Not that he's afraid to snark every now and again. In starting this profile, I was trying to put my finger on why Garrus is one of the most popular characters across the franchise. Well, firstly, praise must go to Brandon Keener and his stellar performance as Garrus across the trilogy. I doubt anyone else could have contributed and had the same effect on players. But honestly, I think what it boils down to is that Garrus is the person most devoted to Shepard, romanced or not. Now I'm gonna have to qualify that, so bear with me. Liara rescues Shepard's body, yes, but spends all of Mass Effect 2 tracking the Shadow Broker. Tali is the first previous squad mate to meet a resurrected Shepard, and even she treats them coming back from the dead as no big deal. Garrus, however? Garrus joining up with Shepard the second he's free from the threat of, imminent death, makes it clear that he's ready to join Shepard's cause no matter who they're working for. Because he trusts Shepard that damn much, and he is unwavering in that support. In fact, through most of Mass Effect 3, he's going out of his way to look after Shepard's well-being. Liara does her best, but Shepard always seems to respond to Garrus more. Possibly because he's a soldier and he knows how to get through to Shepard in a way that Liara, even as a love interest, doesn't. Really, I don't know how else to describe it but devotion. Now that's pretty much all we've got on Garrus, but here's a couple bonus facts. According to Patrick Weeks, Garrus's mandibles taste of cinnamon. This is important information. You should treasure it forever. The comic series Mass Effect Homeworlds covers Garrus' story between Mass Effect 1 right up until the point where Shepard rescues him from his recruitment mission. Check it out if you haven't gotten the chance. Finally, Garrus' visor has Vaenia music on it. You know, that naughty Asari vid on Ilium. Hey, everybody needs a hobby. So what do you think of our buddy Garrus? Got any favorite moments of his? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video and want to see more like it, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time here on Mass Effect Follower.